Fans, we are live once again on the Cheap Heat Productions channel for the Wrestling Podcast. Tonight, or this afternoon, or whatever part of the world you happen to be in at this point in time, we're pleased to have back on for a third podcast focusing in on three. That's right. Focusing in on his World Championship Wrestling career, amongst a few other topics that we'll get to in terms of how he made the segue into being an author and other endeavors. And of course, I am talking about the one, the only, the former Smoky Mountain heavyweight champion, Mr. Bobby Blaze Smedley. Bobby, how are you again today, sir?
I'm great. Free time, brother. Let me get that on there. Where we go? Yeah, doing great. Thanks very much, Jack. I appreciate being back. We got to wrap this thing up. We've been having such a good time. Appreciate all the listeners and viewers out there, man. It's been really, really good. It's been a pleasure talking to you about my career. And yes, we want to jump to WCW this evening or this afternoon, like you said, or whatever time it is in your place, part of the world. So.
Yeah. It's interesting that we've covered your beginnings and then your run in Smoky, but I know a few fans out there know you from WCW television and all the matches you had on WCW TV. You started, and correct me if I'm wrong if I get any of the dates wonky or whatever, but you debuted in WCW, to my understanding, in '97 with a dark match against the late great Louis Spicolli. How did that come about, Bobby?
Well, honestly, I could have started in WCW several months before what I did. I went to I think it was the very first Nitro in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I sit down and spoke to some people, Arn Anderson being one of them, and he knew who I was from Smoky Mountain Wrestling, of course, and he said, I would never forget this. He said, we're just two gentlemen discussing business, and that's all we were doing. And then I spoke with Terry Taylor, and then Kevin Sullivan come around the corner, and just as we're sitting here, he just put his hand on my shoulder and said, Bobby, you're looking for a job? You've got one. Call Paul in the office on Monday. So I that was like a Friday, I think. Well, it could have been a previous Monday. I could be wrong. Anyway, nonetheless, I called Paul the next day or when I was supposed to, and he wanted me to come in for a show within that week to do a TV taping, but he wanted me to go to Macon, Georgia. And at the time, I was working about every weekend. I think I discussed that. We're coming off TV. I was, staying booked pretty regular. Now, I wasn't getting rich, but I was staying booked 2 or 3 times per week, all within a couple hour radius, and generally making a couple $100 per night plus my gimmicks. So when that story was, when Paul, he said, I'd like you to come to Macon, Georgia, and it was $200. That's why I threw it out there. And I said, well, Paul, I said, man, that's a pretty long ride for me. I don't know if I can do it for 200. And I was just, like Arn said, discussing business. Honestly, I was being honest with them. And I had met Paul in Tampa. So to put that in perspective, and Paul said, oh, you're just 4 hours away in Knoxville, right? And I said, oh, no, Paul. I said, man, I've moved back to my home in Kentucky. I said, I'm 8 hours from Atlanta. I said, you're looking at 9-10 hour trip there. He goes, oh, yeah, I could see where you couldn't do that and not want to, And so that's kind of where it started at. And then about a month went, and I said, I wasn't going to do it. It was no hard feelings or anything, obviously. It's just business decision. And about a month went by, and once again, I went to there was an arena here a couple hours away in Ohio, and I approached several of the guys I knew and said hi and this and that, but I mainly went right to Kevin. And he said, Bobby, I thought you were starting. And I told him what happened. He said, oh, it's just misunderstanding. He said, they're going to be offering some contracts. Just hang in there, And in the meantime, I went back to Japan. I think that was my third trip to Japan for like maybe 6 weeks, something like that. Anyway, I went back to Japan, and I was home about a week, and it was Terry Taylor was on the phone. And I thought it was a rib. I said, who's this, And they actually, I think it was Dave Pinzer said he spoke to him, and I knew him from Florida. He said, this Bobby said, this is Dave. And I'm like, Dave who, kind of thing. Cause he said, I said, this is a rib. I said, you got in Tampa's ribbed me. I said, don't fuck around, man. I said, I just got back to Japan. I'm just hanging out. What you want, you know? And I was my attitude. I wasn't being smart. I was just being like, I really thought it was David, just him, some of the guys in Tampa in a hotel room probably ribbed me or something. And he goes, no, Bobby Terry's right here. And I don't know if he's transferred the line, handed it to him, whatever. And it's Terry. And so we started talking, and he asked me would I like to come to have a tryout match. And I said, absolutely, you know. And I remember what, you know, occurred a couple months before that, want me to drive and, you know, pay this and that. And I was like, well, so I said, he said, I want you to be in Charlotte, and gave me a date. And I said, well, Terry, I said, you know, Charlotte's about 350 miles. I said, I can't come down there for no $200, you know. And I'd wrestled Dan Severn down there and made more than that, you know, a year before, whatever it was. And he goes, no, Bob, you don't understand. He goes, we're bringing you in for a tryout. He said, I'm going to transfer you over to Debbie and travel and get you an airline ticket, and you'll be compensated, you know, very well for your. So that's how it happened. And I guess about the following week, I was there. Might have been 2 weeks at a Nitro in Charlotte, North Carolina, and there was Louie and myself. There was 3 dark matches. Tim Horner wrestled John Nord, and Kendall Windham wrestled Chris Adams. But I wrestled Louie, and I knew who Louie was because he'd come through Smoky Mountain with Candido and stayed there for a while, you know, working some. And you know, it was a big Nitro. So everyone's there. I got to speak to everyone, and he wanted Louie to go over with his Death Valley driver, you know. And like I just got back from Japan, and I was in great shape. I didn't feel, give me no pressure and no worry about putting him over. Hell, it's a dark match. And about 5 minutes before the match, Terry come to me and said, listen, I want you to do his finish on him, and you go over. I want to check his attitude. I said, does he know? And he goes, tell him when you're out there. Go, okay. I mean, that's what it was. And I don't know what they had, you know, he got hired too. So I don't know what the deal was. But basically, right from when I said, hey, you know, I'm going over with the Death Valley driver. And he said, okay. So I don't know if Terry had actually said something to him anyway, you know. So then Terry came right by us both, and he said, hey, remember everything I said about trying to impress everyone here? He said, don't. Just impress me. Have a good match. So it kind of took the pressure down. So I think he was kind of testing both of us, you know. And, we went out there and did the match and come back through. And I think all the dark matches, you know, were finishing up. And Terry asked, you know, speak to me in private. And he said he's authorized to offer me a contract, and would I be interested? I knew it. I knew I had a figure in my head. If they offered this much, I was going to go. Well, it was above the minimum I had in my head, which was good. And I said, give me just a few minutes to think about it. I mean, I knew the answer was yes, and I think he did too. But I went and I spoke to Sean Waltman, X-Pac kid, you know, X-Pac, whatever. He's a friend of mine, and I knew he'd been there for a little while. I said, hey, what's this? He said, man, he said, no, Bobby said, it is what it is. He said, man, just y'all think about it. I'd do it for what position you're in, and this is what you're going to get. So do it. But then, of course, I was ultimately trying to get to Dean Malenko, which I'd already spoke to him. I knew he was in a building, but I really valued his word, you know. At that time, I just was like, so I went and I found Dean, and I told him basically, I told Sean, just I said, here's the layout, blah, blah. And he goes, what are you making now? And I told him, he goes, and they're offering you what? And I go, yeah. He goes, Bobby, let me ask you something. Dean just got a way about him, and we used to always have this thing. I mentioned it before, I'm sure, in training and stuff. It was just when we could be smart asses to each other and love each other, and it's just, you know, his dad took me under his wing, so it's kind of a whole different, not brotherly, but it's that thing where you can just fuck with someone, you know. Mm-hmm. And he was like, let me ask you this: what would Dad say? And I said, he'd tell me to take the money. He goes, why the fuck are you asking me for it? You know, that's the way he was. Like, fuck off! I'm getting my boosters later, lacing my boots or whatever. And so I went back and waited around till another 5 or 10 minutes. Whoever Terry was talking to, he came back through, and I said, can I speak to you? And he said, yeah, of course. And I said, hey, I'll take that. And he goes, someone to get with you for the end of the night with your contract and the figures and all that. He said, you won't actually get one tonight. They'll mail it, but you need to sign your name and social security number and address. We'll get this taken care of. I said, man, thank you very much. And he goes, I'm just giving you an opportunity, Bobby. He goes, I like the way you work, and so people here really speak highly of you. And that's how I got on. I was home for that was in September, I think, of '97, and then I started right there, maybe around October. It might have been really last week of September, first week of October. I went right to Disney World, or excuse me, I'm sorry, Universal Studios for the tapings down there. And that I think it could have been October 1st of '97, technically. I right around that time frame. I knew I still hadn't had a check, but they had FedExed my contract to me. I had all my paperwork signed, and while I was there, I had to call the office a couple of times because there was some hold up on the check, the way I'd hired in this and that. And I kept thinking, I'm down here in Florida spending money. I'm supposed to be making money, you know. And I was there about 9 or 10 days, and called home and to my partner at the time, and she said, "Oh yeah, it came today, and this is what it is." And very excited, I'm like, thank goodness, you know. But so I started technically. I think my contract ran around like the middle of September of '97 through the end of December of 2000. I think when I got let go, a lot of change were happening, you know, in '99, and I had went to first of all I had been injured, and I had gotten a doctor release, but the office had it. But when I got to Roanoke, Virginia, Jimmy Hart didn't have it. He was the agent that night, and there was all kind of flight delays. It was really windy and this and that. Long story short, he said, Bobby, just help me lay out some matches here, help me get this together. And Jimmy's just that way. He's always very positive. You know, he goes, man, I'd put you in if I could, but I just don't have your release. And it's all good, you know, but, you know, whatever. And so when I came home, I knew my contract was, it's either to roll over. I'd go to a show. They were letting people go like crazy at this point. It was like 150 people, like at the Universal at the beginning. And then all of a sudden you hear half these people got, you know, let go, and we're like a crew of like 75 people now. And it went from like 75 down to 60. And I was still there thinking someone must like me, you know, and or like my contract rolling around. And long story short on that, well, that date rolled over. So once that date rolls over, you automatically get the next 3 months, you know, it's written that they compensate you for that non-complete calls. So I got an office call from JJ, and like I said, maybe a week or so in October, whatever it was, and I knew that date had passed, and he laid it out for me and said, hey, this is the hard part of the job, blah, blah, blah. Be expecting, you know, something from FedEx, you know, blah, blah. And so I stayed till didn't do it. I actually in November went back to Japan of '99 because I kept that deal open, of course, which was good. So, but they paid me through the end of all the way sometime in January, February of 2000, whatever it was. But that's how I got on, and I was supposed to. And I liked being in WCW for the most part. There was a lot of things going on there. We were in the Monday Night Wars, you know, at that point, and it was very exciting. Some things were said and some things were, you know, I won't say broken promises. I knew when I went in there how many days I was getting per year and X amount of dollars per those days. And it was a very good contract. And anything I went over, it was over 65 matches. Once I went over that, it was basically $1,000, you know, $1,000 a night to on my contract is the way it was read. And so there was 70, 71 matches one year, 72 like the other year. So anything above the 65 was, you know, bonus pay basically. Now you think, and I break this down so people don't think, well, you make all this money, you made all that money. But it's like, it does sound like $1,000 a match, which it was, but you also got your travel days in there and this and that. So it may not be, you know, and your taxes, you know, those type things. But so yeah, I did that for almost 3 years there with them. The people there, for the most part, were very good to me. I didn't have a problem with anyone. I knew my job. I knew my role, so to say. I was there. I was going to put people over and be put over some. A couple funny things that did happen, and I talk about it in my book. I about got fired from Universal or that run in Florida while at Universal within a week of being there. We were in Orlando doing TVs, and they put me over on the worldwide tapings. Well, we went down to, I think it was Sarasota, and I had Alex Wright in a match, and it was on a Tuesday night taping. So I'd driven down there, and Helly was supposed to go 4 or 5 minutes, and within a minute of the match, man, he jumped on me, blah, blah. He's trying to, I'm like, what the fuck is going over? You know, get the fuck off of me, basically. And he's all just jacked up, man. He's just a young kid, though, you know. And I know I'm putting him over, that's no problem, but the referee gives us the cue, like, it's time to go. We wasn't even like, it went from like 5 to 3. Now we're like a minute and a half in the match. Well, I know it's finished, a German suplex. So I do something, roll around, and he German suplexed me. And as soon as the referee goes 1, 2, and he goes down for third count, I just rolled the fuck one out of the ring. I just rolled completely out of the ring. And the referee, of course, hit the mat and started holding up 3. You know, they can do that in editing. Well, I just fucking looked up. I was pissed off because he hit me in the jaw a little bit hard. And plus, I know the fucking finish. You ain't, you know, it's a work, man. And I'm supposed to be helping these guys. So I went right to the war room. And I never forget, Terry Taylor jerked the door open. He's standing there just as sure you and I are talking like this. Arn is right behind him laughing, and Flair's on a couch over there later laughing because they started hearing Terry's going, Bobby, why the hell did you do that for? And I said, do what? And I fucked up when I started playing stupid because these guys are smart. You know, I go, he goes, you know what you did? I go, no. He goes, you kicked Al House's finish on national TV. And I said, oh, that. I said, yeah. He said, and you can't do that. He said, we could probably fix that in editing. He goes, but you kicked out on, you kicked out on 2 on that. And I go, yeah. I just, man. And he goes, you can't take it personal. He said, listen. He said, we're going to have guys here that put you over, and they're going to lay down there for 3 seconds, if not more. So whenever you're getting pinned, lay there and let the guy pin you. I said, yeah, yes, sir. I knew, you know, I said, you're right. He goes, you got to understand, Bobby, I know where you're coming from. And they're Blair and Arn just looked at and laughed like this. I'm a grown ass man, you know, so they're looking at me like, because I knew I wasn't lying. I lied for a second, like, hey, and I'm not known to be a liar. I'm just saying, like, no, do what? What are you talking about? But I knew what I did. And but Terry goes, I know why you did it. He goes, you come from territories, and he goes, you got to stay strong. And he said, you really didn't kick out that bad. He said, it could be corrected. He lightened up a little bit. He goes, that's the thing. Is because in a territory, when you're working back in the day, you know, I got to work Jack next week. So when you go to pin me, no matter what your finish is, it's 1, 2, 3, and then I'm right out because I still have to stay strong. Or lay there or you're getting attacked to set up your next opponent or whatever, you know the deal. So that's what my thinking was, you know, fuck, I'm going to be because on the worldwide, I was going over for however long I'd been there, 2 or 3 days, 4 days at that point, maybe 4 or 5 matches. And they put me over everyone except for Chris, who I'd mentioned. What's his name? Gentleman Chris Adams. I put him over on one of the worldwides, but it was a very competitive match, you know, and kicked out on 2 and things like that. But with Alex, man, I kicked out of it. And of course, the next day, I went to Universal. We're staying there. At 9:30, I was knocking on the trailer door, and Terry opened it for the war room. And I said, hey, Terry, I just want to apologize. I was not trying to lie and bullshit you. I said, I know I could have lost my job. I said, I want this job, and I'll lay down for 3. But, man, I said, I didn't want you to think I was just been a bullshit artist, you know. He goes, I didn't take that away at all. He goes, just forget about it. And it was forgotten, honestly. But that was kind of one of the funny things when I started.
One of your notable early opponents in WCW that Maurice wanted me to ask you about and is, in fact, on the list is your work with Chris Benoit.
Yeah. Well, there's a shoot interview with me doing it on YouTube with on the official Bell to Bell Bobby Blaze podcast with me doing the voiceover during that match as to what happened. And what happened was this. As one of the better matches in my career. In fact, I was just telling some students this just last Tuesday or Thursday during class. It it's one of my top 5 matches of all time that I've had. And it started, it was in Toledo, Ohio. And we just done a pay-per-view for the World War III, World War III at the time, 97. And long story short, I didn't know what was going on. And I know I say it a whole lot, long story short, but I didn't know what was going on other than I went to the building. I went to the building with the Armstrong brothers, rode in, and, got in there, and the board hadn't been put up yet or anything. And I was just, getting ready to had my stuff by my chair, and Chris Benoit came to me, and he's just kind of, and here's the thing. I knew Chris. I'd been in Australia with Chris. So I had been in Australia for 21, 22 days around him every day, and I knew him. When I got there, I'd see him every time I saw him. Honestly, we were doing something together. If he wasn't doing something, I always tried to do Hindu with him. I try to learn something from him every time, that I was around him. And I think that's that respect thing. I love doing that stuff. We wasn't buddies, pal, and traveling. I'm just saying, if I saw him, we'd done something together. He knew I liked doing them from over in Australia. And so that's what I got. In Australia, we was there like maybe 2 first days we ribbed each other. He ribbed me really good. But like the second or third day, we both got stuck at this gym, and a taxi wasn't available. And hell, we just started working out again. And I think he liked that in me, that I stuck with him, and we got the dinner late and this and that. And it's like, that guy's all right. He's done. We was young, what I'm saying. So I think that played part of it. Anyway, he grabs me and says, "Bobby, come here." And he just pulls me over here, and he goes, "Listen, tonight you're working with me." He goes, "I want everything super snug." He goes, "I want you to lay it in there. I want you to do this." And he goes, he could lock up with me. And I locked up with him. He said, and I got a pretty good lock up. I was like, he goes, "Come on, give it to me." Boom. Like, yes, we're locking up. Out of the corner of my eye, I see 2 people coming to me. And it's Eddie and Dean. And they go, "What the fuck's going on? Y'all over here shooting? What's going over here?" And Chris just kind of walked away. And I was like, "Oh, no, we're fine. No big problem. Nothing like that." And he just told me to be super snug and go out there. And so finally, I get my gear on. He comes back, and they put the board up there. And this match number 23 out of 24. And Chris says, this is the only thing he really says. He goes, you know my finish, right? I guess. And he goes, "I'll hit you with the headbutt off the top, cross face." I said, "No worries." He goes, "The only thing I want you to do," he goes, "be as snug as you can." And he goes, "The only thing I'm going to call out there is one thing." He said, "If I say knees," he said, "I'll have you bent over." I had the long hair, and he said, "I'm going to have you bent over." And he goes, "If I say knees, protect yourself," because I'm throwing knees at you. And I said, "Well, I'll do it anyway." What I'm saying? Common sense. I had a little bit of background enough to know you want to throw their knee, block it, But so the only thing that was said during that match was knees. And where he had already bent me over, I was protecting myself. So what happened was, we went out there, and man, he started giving me something. I got on him. Couldn't have asked for a better match. Dusty's on the play-by-play, putting it over huge. "Look at this Bobby Blade. He's going to make it to the pay window. It may not be today, but he's going to make it." And he goes, "I'm a Benoit guy," and he just put me over right with it until the finish. And then boom, I tapped to the crossface and coming back. But this time the building's damn near empty because they're doing 2 weeks of taping. Like I said, 23 out of 24 matches. Hall and someone was the last match of the main event of that card, but it's also the last match of TV. And I go in the back, and the Armstrongs are there waiting on me, and a couple other people. A couple of the Mexicans usually stayed around after the matches, like watched all the matches, like you should. But we've been up here, and it's Thanksgiving, going to be the next couple of days. And I think I did it on Tuesday. I think we had one more day, then fly home, whatever it was. So anyway, I just started unlacing my boots. I'm sitting there minding my own business, and Mongo McMichael comes up, standing like right here above me. He goes, "Hey, kid." I looked up, he's a big beast back then, big, strong guy. And I always spoke to him, no disrespect or anything like that. He goes, "Hey, kid," he goes, "I didn't know you could fly around like that out there." And he goes, "That's a good match." And I go, I don't know anything at this point, what happened or anything. I just knew it was a good match. And I keep on unlacing my boots. Well, he put out his hand. And I've seen and heard how he talked to people before. And that's not someone you want to mess with, And he wasn't messing with me. He was just, I thought, well, I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm going to shake the man's hand because I don't know what the fuck you got to say, really. So I shook his hand. I reached like that, shook his hand. He said, maybe one day you and I can get in there and do it. I didn't know you could do all that stuff. And I said, well, it'd be my pleasure. Anytime you want to get in there, thanks. I didn't know what that was all about, And he's like, well, good match, kid. Just walked away. And I hadn't seen him talk to anyone else like that before. Got his way to be nice to him, whatever. And so Armstrong Brothers, man, they come over. And they're like, what's that about? You all right? Everything good? I'm like, yes. We had to drive back to Detroit where we're staying at or wherever. Because of that. Like, so we flew into Detroit for that pay-per-view, and we did the Palace on the pay-per-view, and then did like Nitro, Saginaw up through Michigan, and that was an hour below Detroit and Toledo, like I said. And so what happened was I didn't find any of this out till much later. What happened was, and it was a very good match, and I appreciate what Chris did for me. And he took care of me. It was super snug, but he took everything I gave him, and I took everything he gave me. And I love the match, and I respect him the way. And again, this has completely nothing to do with personal issues. All that aside, strictly speaking about the match. And what had happened when the board went up, and I wasn't in there, and I guess they hadn't actually brought it out from the war room to the where the general, one of the guys were at in the locker room, and it had Bobby Blaze and Mongo McMichael, I guess is what the word was. So Steve McMichael or what have you might have Mongo on the board. I didn't see it, and apparently, and this is when he's in a Horseman, and he says something like, who's this kid? I can't do anything with him. He's a nobody, something like that. Well, Chris, this is what I heard from several people. Chris immediately said, put my name there right now. Just put my name right there, right by Bobby's. So he walked away, they said. He left the war room. Apparently, that's when he came right to me. Well, like I said, I knew him from Australia, and I knew the way he was talking to me. This was very personal and also very professional. So when he walked away from me, like I said, Dean and Eddie, and maybe Jericho was even there. Your things all right? Like, yeah, it's all good. It's going to be intense. So I mentioned the Armstrong brothers. Scotty come to me and he goes, hey, Bobby, I just want you to know, he goes, man, Chris is fucking intense. And he goes, when I saw your name on there with them, he goes, I went over and told them because, they knew me from Smoky Mountain. I knew their family pretty good. He went over and he went down there first doing TV. Scotty did before. Then Stevie went and before Smoky Mountain. Then we shut down, of course. But anyway, so Scott had already been down there quite a while, and he said, "Man, I went to." He said, "I just want to let you know I went to Benoit," and he said, "I just told him." He said, "Just Bobby, Bobby can go." And Chris goes, "Don't worry about it. I know who he is." Like that, and walked away. He goes, "Y'all got heat?" And I said, "No, man." I said, "I know him from Australia." I said, "He come over here and talk to him." I said, "I trained with him any chance I can." I said, "No heat that I know of." And he goes, "Man," he goes, "I think you're going to have a good match tonight." And I go, "I hope the fuck so, because something's going on." And like I said, we went out there and had the match, and it was a good. We'll come home. I did next night, wherever that's at. May come home on that Wednesday. I guess yeah, probably come on that Wednesday because Thursday was Thanksgiving. It wasn't to that following Tuesday probably that so people got my ear and started, hey, this is what happened. This is. And one of the best things about that was when I said some of the Mexicans stayed back and watched, and like I said, the Armstrongs, Norman Smiley was one of them guys too. He always watched the matches, and I always admired the guy because I'm one of them. Stick around and watch the matches, and if you're on like an hour into the show, watch what the first 3 or 4 matches do and see what they do. I'm trying to always give people that kind of advice that are in the wrestling business. When you're done, see what happens. Unless you absolutely have to go, watch the match, especially if you're a fan. You can still learn. About a year later, back to World War III '98 or whatever it is, in the same schedule. You go to Detroit on a Thursday or Friday, whatever it was, and you do this and do that. Then you do Palace on Sunday. I think Saginaw and Flint Monday and Tuesday. Detroit or Toledo was Tuesday, whatever it was. We're walking in a building, and Scott Armstrong was ahead of me. And this is just guys that sometimes you just meet up at the airport. It's not like you're saying, like, we'll share a room together. We'll get a rent-a-car together. It's just the people's fights sometimes, you know, and you know them and you get along with them because you don't be hanging out with some asshole, you know. And if you don't smoke, you don't want to hang out with a smoker. If you don't drink, you don't hang out with a drinker. You know, you don't want to hang out with a whoremonger. Don't, you know what I'm saying? People generally much gyrate to who you hang out with. You know, I mean, each what you like. I like going to the gym. I like doing this. I like having a beer. No, I'm not a smoker, you know, whatever it is. But this, so you end up around those people at the airport like, hey, I got a car. You need a ride? Oh, okay. Or I'm one of, sometimes you go and you just want to be fucking alone, you know. You got personal stuff at home. You're like, this is my job. I got to do it. So I'm going to get the car, get my own room, mind my own business, go to the show and do my matches, you know. And that to me was another great escape. But on this one here, Scott Armstrong's in front of me, or Norman Smiley's right behind me. We just got out of the rent-a-car, and we're at this building. And like I said, Toledo, Ohio. And he goes, hey, Bobby, isn't this that building that you and Chris Benoit had that great match in? And I stopped and I looked back and I said, do you remember that? He said, yeah. He goes, I always remember, he was so serious. He goes, I always remember the best match from every night on every card I've been on. And he said, that night, he said, you all was semi-main event. And he said, you stole the show. It was absolutely fantastic. And Scotty's listening. He goes, hey, I remember that, you know. And I'm sitting there just listening like, oh, man. I mean, I marked it out for myself a little bit because these guys put me over. But I did recall it, you know. But I was not letting it get to me like, oh, it was that fantastic, you know. That's what happened. But like I said, it would have been another couple of weeks before word got back to me that my name was against Mongo. And bless his heart, nothing against him, you know, just that's just what his mood was at that point, you know. And little behold, did he know, you know, what I could do. And the thing about that was, you and I both know, and it's not disrespect towards anyone, I couldn't have had that kind of match with Mongo. You know, it would have been a whole different kind of match. It had to be a bigger man and smaller man and trying to just work around him and try to make him look good and ultimately, you know, taking some whatever his finish was, clothesline or whatever it was. But never worked with him. That's fine. I have a lot of respect for him because at the time, even at that pay-per-view, you know, he's walking around and like I said, I'd been there less than a month or so, whatever it was, and you're sitting there going, you know, this man's a man. You don't play in NFL for 15 years and not be one tough son of a bitch. You know what I'm saying? So it's like he's a man's man. He showed up. He wanted to show up. He wanted to drink beer. He drank beer. You know, but you know he's a good dude. He's one of the horsemen. You know, so I remember one time we went to a town and I'm not talking out of school, nothing bad, like I said. There was he had paid for a couple of people to come in to do massages for people. There's a couple people, local massage parlor. Not the happy ending, but legitimate, you know. And they had a couple of tables there, and it was Kurt. We didn't even know at the time. They said, "Oh, this is Curtis and Mongo." How much were they? They said, "Just take care of the staff. Give them a tip. Give them $5 or $20, whatever you feel comfortable with. Just go over and get your little rub down and relax." And that was just something he did. You know, it was like I didn't know again until later that evening. Oh, that was set up by him. You know, just things that someone does for other people. And we might have been, honestly, I couldn't tell you, outside Chicago or maybe a town he had been to before, whatever. He had a connection there with just, a massage school or something. But, I laid up there, got my back rubbed, get the kinks out, whatever, and give him a 20 and go on. It's all legit. It wasn't anything, no, like I said, no happy endings. Not like I'll have no story with you, I'm just saying. But, that was a wrestling decision that he didn't think I was worthy of getting in there. But after the match, he took the time, still there, and he came up to me like a man, shook my hand like a man, and put me over like a man. And I'll never forget that,
No kidding.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, no kidding. That's a big endorsement from one of your top level peers. Did you have any interactions with Eric Bischoff behind the scenes or elsewhere?
Yeah, about two. So I spoke to Eric the night I signed my contract. I just got out of the ring. You have to realize when Terry Taylor says, I'm authorized to to offer you this contract. It comes from someone else, you know, and it comes from Bischoff. He's walking through and he says, yeah, something to me, you know, and he turns around and he goes, good match, Louis, like that. And I said, he's turned his back, like walked like and I said, Bobby, excuse me. And I made him go like that because he started walking away. I went like that. I walked over to shake his hand. I said, my name's Bobby. He goes, yeah, that's right, Bobby Blaze, yeah. And I said, yeah, thank you. I said, Louis is who I worked with. And that, I wasn't being a smart ass, I was being a man. I thought, if I'm going to work here, you ought to know who I am, you know. Well, I know he don't like the Southern wrestlers. He don't like this and like that or whatever. And that's fine. And to this day, and I'll go into that in a second. So I spoke to him that night, the day I got my contract, when I let him know, you know, my name's Bobby, kind of thing. And then another show, and I honestly could not remember when it was. It might have been, it could have been a pay-per-view, but it could have been something, a Thunder, might have been a Thunder. But anyway, I was coming back and he said, good match, Bobby. That was a good match. And just put me over. And that was that. That's the only 2 times I really spoke to him. He always was around the other people making the big money and kind of doing his own thing. Plus, the man had a lot of pressure. He's doing the, you know, Monday Night War thing, and a lot of thinking, a lot of traveling, a lot of stuff that didn't involve me anyway. I'm just a small piece that goes out there every other couple of weeks and does TV and maybe do some other stuff for him behind the scenes, you know. With that said, you know, some people like Eric, some people don't. It's all right for me. I'm not going to bury the guy. The last WrestleCade a year ago, I saw he was caddy corner from where I was at. I knew the promoter that brought him in, and you know, his line stayed pretty consistent. And I'm kind of roaming back and forth out front of my table and doing this and doing that. And I look up and there's not anyone in his line, and he's just talking to whoever's beside him. And I walk up to him and I stick my hand out and I said, hey, Eric, Bobby Blaze. And I just want to thank you for the job about 20 years ago. I appreciate it. I see you kept me employed for 3 years. He goes, oh, okay. Hey, Bobby. And that was it. And then it didn't seem very warm or welcomed. Okay. Which is, hey, he's a busy man. There was people going to be back in his line. People going to be back in my line. It is what it is. Well, this past August, and I did see him at this WrestleCade last week or 2 weeks ago. He was way on the other end than I was. I didn't go around like I usually do and speak to everyone. I spoke to the people I knew that was around me. And I was happy doing that. I was happy to see some of my friends, but I didn't go down to I didn't tour the whole section where that area was at of the arena. But in August, this is what happened in August. The promoter that promoted me he said, you got a problem with Bischoff? I said, no, not at all, not to my knowledge. He goes, well, I got you with a table with him and Jimmy Hart. And I said, well, put me with Jimmy if you can. And so what they did when they got there, Jimmy and I, who's a real sweetheart, we're like right beside each other, just like you and I'd be sitting right here. Then there was a table sideways, and then Eric was on that table for him to sign. So the line he could turn, he had bigger posters and things. And, you know, I spoke to him, and he done his thing all day, done this and done that. And then right before he got ready to leave, you know, he had to come past where Jimmy Hart and I were. And he got there late, left early. That was his deal. I mean, he wasn't late for the hours he was advertised. You know, I was there for like, excuse me, I was there 10 to 4. I think he was like noon to 3. So he wasn't late. What I'm saying is the event started early in the morning and it ran till 6. But I'm saying his hours were, you know, right in the middle, prime hours or whatever. So it wasn't like when I say he got there late and left early, I'm saying that's his contract. That's his deal, you know. He was not late for the people. So anyway, so when he left at 3 or whatever, I just reached my hand out and said, hey, Eric, I just want to say thanks. And he said something like, well, it's not like I got to go 1,000 places or do something in a hurry. And I was like, well, fuck it. Sorry you feel that way. You know, I got to travel too in just a couple hours, you know. Now, I don't know. He looked like he had a good day. But there's so many minutes and hours in a day, and I'm not going to let 1 5-minute interaction, which it was about 60 seconds, honestly, 1 minute interaction. I was riding home an hour later, going home to my house 2 hours away. And I said, I'm not going to let that fucking dickhead 1 minute interaction of him saying something like, I got to go, ruin my day. You know what I'm saying? And so people ask me about Bischoff, you know what? Form your own opinion, because I treat people the way they treat me. And when I was in WCW, I shook his hands a couple of times like a man, spoke to him like a man, and was very respectful. And 2 times outside then, since then, I spoke to him, and I get the sense that, he's not a Bobby Blaze fan. Well, that's all right. I'm not a fucking Eric Bischoff fan. I don't have to be. But I appreciate that what he did for wrestling. I appreciate that I had a job for 3 years there. So I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm just saying I don't have to be a fan. But I don't have to be his friend either. I'm not his foe. I'm not his friend. I'm just no frenemy stuff. I just try to be respectful. And if I see him tomorrow or another booking and he's friendly, I'm gonna shake his hand still. There's no hard feelings that way. It's just that, and you can read about that in my book, my first one. I wrote a little bit about it. His personality and mine. He wasn't a Southern wrestling fan. He didn't like cowboys or old Southern boys that know how to wrestle, or work. His deal was, hey, he got that position and he ran with it, and done quite well for himself in the wrestling business for where he started and what he done. And hell's far, man. That's great, So
never hurts to be polite, though. I saw that you speaking of carrying somebody in the ring, I saw that you wrestled the Renegade. And I believe I did catch that match in the past, but what were your memories of working that fella? And that he met a tragic end, so no disrespect to the dead or whatnot, but just that whole gimmick and the whole deal seemed to be desperation personified.
Yeah, funny, not funny, ha, but funny, strange that you ask that, because like I said, not talking of the dead or tragic what happened, but it was really funny how that came about, because we were at Universal Studios, and there, it could be any number of people giving you, that have 5 shows throughout the day. Like maybe you had to be like at 9 or 9:30, and the show started like at 10 until 11. Then like 11:30 to 12:30. Then an hour for lunch, because it's union jobs, cameraman and all that. So you got 5 tapings all day long, and you're doing that for 10 days. And so you put the whiteboards up, and there's your name with so-and-so. Well, there's mine with the Renegade. And that guy, man, you're in this huge, you're in Universal Studio. You're in a huge studio. There's 150, 200 people in there, and you're not even crowded. It's just everyone puts their stuff against the wall. It's like a huge locker room. It's just a vacant, empty lot. And hell, there's 2 trailers back there. it's everything. And then the other section of the big ring that seats 300 people around it. It's ginormous, So they call you to attention at 9:30. Well, hey, the board's up, blah, blah, blah. Blood work today, urine test today. They're telling you whatever it is. First morning, just like a job, you go there, the boss yells out, whatever. You go up to the board, and there's your name. I hadn't got to the board. And I sat way in the back. I sit with the Southern white trash. That's what we called ourselves. We sit back there because everyone segregated themselves too. The Mexicans sit with Mexicans, Japanese sit with Japanese, the Florida boys sit with the Florida boys, Minnesota with Minnesota. I knew a lot of Florida guys. I trained there, but also I knew all these guys from Atlanta, Knoxville, where I'd wrestled all them. So I just sit with the Southern boys, and we joked about it. But anyway, I'm back in the back. Here he comes, Renegade. He's all fucking jacked up, and he's just, we're like, goddamn, man, it's like 9:40 in the morning, And he goes, hey, man, it's me and you want to wrestle. We'll get in there. And he goes, so I like to do this, and I like to do that. So I'm thinking I'll do this. Can you do that? And he's asking all this stuff. He goes, can you do a thing like outside the ring, and I hit you and roll in? Can you be there for that? And I'm like, and he goes, and then my finish, dude, I like, hold on. I said, I don't know what the fuck your finish is. Calm the fuck down. Go have some more coffee. I just be an asshole because I'm like, being me. I'm like, bro, it's just we're not on to like fourth or fifth taping, like at 4 or 5 in the afternoon or something. That's one thing. And they just put it up. I haven't even seen it up there yet. And besides, you're not giving me the fucking finish because I don't know who's going over. You might think you are, but I know what my deal is here. So I'll wait till I hear it from the boss, you know. So I'm like, man, chill out, dude. Just and I've been around him a lot too, not buddy, but you know, I always say this: you teach people how to treat you, you know. So he coming at me like that, about energy. I'm deflecting. I'm like, whoa, you know, hey man. And I probably did say have another coffee or something, you know, because I was like, dude, we got plenty of time, just chill, you know, because it's early in the morning, you know, and we don't have to do this right this second. So I calm him down a little bit. I'm like, you know, that whole like Mr. Cool here, but I'm like, hey, just relax. So I go back, I look at the board, I see it. I'm like, yes, it's fourth taping or whatever. I go back, I tell whoever I'm with, and I said, yeah. I said, I got Renegade, like, you know, fourth taping or whatever. Okay. Well, lo and behold, he come back to me after lunch. He goes, hey, man. He was not as jacked up. He's like, hey, man, I was want to tell you, he said, do you think you can do this one thing here? And again, I don't know what his finish was because he said, and here's my finish. And I was like, bro, I honestly couldn't tell what his finish was because I don't think I listened or I didn't know it. But I was like, I'm drawing a blank or whatever. So I said, just, you know, I said, hold on a second. I said, let's just go do this. So I went and found Arn. Arn goes, pulls his glasses down. He said, look here, get about 5 to 7. Bobby, you're going over. You listen to Bobby and do what he tells you. And walks away. And then it hit me. That guy, they put the TV title on Arn as soon as he came in, if you remember. Mm-hmm. So Arn's words were very direct. Bobby, take care of this guy. And he's going to listen to you. And he made it very clear. I'm going over. He's going to listen to me. And I was like, woo, okay, that's what I thought. But when you hear it, you know, right? So I was like, and he immediately, dude, he deflated. He went from like 250 down to like 200. I mean, you get to see it. The wind went out the sail, you know. And I was like, he goes, hey, bro, can we at least do this? I said, hold on. I said, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Who's going outside the ring when you want to do this one spot? And he goes, I just want to know if I could do this thing. If you don't care, I go over the top rope. And if you're by it, I come back in on top. And I said, so basically, you're just going to jump over the top rope and jump back in the ring. He goes, yeah. And I go, I got you. And he goes, can I do my clothesline? And I said, one clothesline. That's it. I said, I hate clotheslines. I said, do you throw it left-handed or right-handed? He told me, I said, I'll be there for it. And so I said, I'll get back with you. So now I'm in charge. So I know what I'm supposed to do, you know. So I see him wander off there, La La Land or whatever. I go up to Arn and I say, Arn, I speak to you for a minute. And Arn's like, Bobby, don't let this kid call anything. He said, stay on him. And I go, well, I gathered that. I said, my question was going to be, you want me to do my Northern Lights? Is there anything special you want? And he goes, not really. You have something in mind? I said, you know what I like to do? I said, I think I'd like to double hook his butterfly and do a butterfly suplex like Dory Funk used to. I said, I'm going to get up and hesitate. I said, I just want to do it. He goes, I think that looked great, Bobby. Do what you want. And so I went back to Jeff and I said, hey, man, so here's the finish. I said, I'll put you in position. I said, yeah. And I think he slammed me by the apron, jumped over the rope, like jumped back. It was something simple to do, but it's all he wanted to get in a clothesline. But anyway, I think if you watch that, I'm pretty sure I finish him off with the if it's not the Northern Lights, it could be, but I'm pretty sure I think I double arm suplexed him, butterfly suplexed him, and got the win. So that's kind of story of it. And when I came in the back, man, he was thankful as can be because he'd have been lost. You know, if he come up tell me at 9:40 in the morning, like, oh God, you got to do this all day? Are you crazy? You know, because again, we wasn't on to like 3 or 4 in the afternoon or whatever. And I called the match simple to keep it simple because it wasn't a lot he could do, honestly. And it's nothing against him. He was thrown into a position because of his body and knew very little, obviously, about, you know, how to wrestle or whatever. He knew how to get over for what they wanted him to get over doing. But But if I had let him call that match, fuck, I'd still be going crazy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so yeah, he wanted to do like two simple things. Like, can you do it? And I'm like, yeah, I'll see. But what's funny was when Arn pulled them glasses down, looked at that booking sheet, and said, yeah, Bobby, you're going over, and you listen to what Bobby says. And I saw a great satisfaction on Arn's face when he did that. And that's
no kidding.
how that went. Yeah, but and I won't say it's a great match, but thankfully it was a good enough match for TV because he did listen, and he tried hard, and he had a good heart. He was just so jacked up. They had him so full of, you're going to be this superstar, but at this point he's also on his way down, and that had to suck. You know what I'm saying? Honestly, and obviously it did for the tragic outcome. So I'm not bragging about that. That's the way it went, and I loved it. And I still, sometimes that story bothers me because I get enthusiastic about telling it, but I know the outcome ultimately, But just for that match, keep it at that. And it's all, bless his heart. But
almost, the guy was almost set up for failure. I'd be remiss. Yeah. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about any noteworthy stories or experiences with the mighty Ming Haku during your WCW tenure.
Oh, well, let me tell you, man, brother, if it wasn't for Haku and Ming and Barbarian, rather, them guys, they were so good to me and so good-hearted to me. Those times we had finished up in Disney, Universal there, and he lived in Kissimmee in that area, and he would take us out sometimes to have dinner on the last taping. Whoever was there that didn't have a flight until the next morning, it was laid over a day. Many times that's me. If I could get on a 6:00 flight on a Sunday, I could, but usually that if you're done a last taping, you're flying out Monday. So he was very kind in a way. But Ming, I talk about in this book here, in my first book, Pin Me, Pay Me. I'm just holding that up there.
Let's show them. Let's talk about it.
In that book right there, Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. Thank you. I talk about wrestling Scott Flash Norton. And, man, he had apparently the night before, he had done, I guess he had a pay-per-view match with Ernest. It might have actually been Nitro, but he had a pay-per-view match against Ernest Miller. And when Ernest come to TV, must have been a Sunday would have been a pay-per-view, Monday would have been a Nitro, Tuesday TV. And Ernest was running around with this picture, and all it was him kicking. I mean, it's a super great kick, but he's kicking Flash Norton. But apparently in the match, Norton had beat him up pretty good, and that's the only thing he let the cat do. Okay. And so he's like a kid running around the locker room. It was a great picture. I mean, he's super kicking him or whatever. And, and so, man, before Norton gets to the locker room, some of the boys already put a bug in his ear. Miller's running around here, Ernest running around here bragging about all the stuff he done in that match last night. And he's got this picture of him super kicking this and that. And so, man, he comes to the door and he's hot. He's like Norton is. And I tell a story to answer your question. He says, where's Ernest Miller? Where's Ernest? He's pissed. And you just see it, man. But I'd already seen the board that had Bobby Blaze against Scott Norton. I'm like, and someone he might have mumbled, I'd hate to be his opponent tonight. And I'm looking, I went, like shook my head to myself like I've already seen the board. But so I'm dressing in Ming and Barber like right here with me. And he's like, he comes in, he goes, man, if I find Ernest Miller, I mean, he's hot. And I'm going, oh God, he's going to take it out on me. Well, Ernest comes in, he grabs Ernest. He just reams him out a new one, blah, blah, blah. And he says, he goes, I beat the shit out of you. And the only thing you got off of me was that kick. And that's the only thing you're showing, and Ernie's selling back. I mean, he's like, he said, you're right, Flash. You're right. He's putting him over without it was funny. He goes, Yeah, you're right. Only thing I do is that kick, the finish, whatever. You won. I got over the finish, and it was just something humorous, right? Well, by that time, of course, that deflated it quite a bit. But also, I saw Norton walking back out, and I saw Barbarian and Ming walk out, and they come back in, and Ming just gave me this nod. And Barb and I used to fly out of Charlotte a lot, so I'd be on flights with him a lot. And we roomed at the same hotel. And believe it or not, I tell a story. He's a good basketball player. So when we stayed out in Orlando, we would go out after the. I lift weights with them and shoot basketball. Me, him, Bobby Eaton, Stroh, several people that in our little group. So Barb was like my buddy, you know what I'm saying? Because it's a lot of time connecting flights in Charlotte. And he come by and said, Bobby, nothing to worry about. Just walked on. Didn't look at me, just kind of saw Bobby, nothing to worry about. Went right back. Well, I go out there with a time. I get to Gorilla, and I've got to wrestle. There's Norton, and he goes, "Hey, I heard you can go, man." He goes, I'm gonna lay in some chops and power bomb you. Anything else you want to do, you do it. I'll stand there and work around me. I said, all right, man. And that's pretty much all it's called. I worked around him. I did headlock, switch, hammerlock, whatever, dude. He chopped the fuck out of me, picked me up, power bomb me, laid me down like a baby. Boom, 1, 2, 3. I remember going to the war room. Well, first of all, he was waiting for me at the Gorilla when I got done. He said, man, that's the best match I've had here in 2 years. He said, thank you so much. Put me over like that. For some reason, I got ahead of him. I don't know if he had to get his jacket or he's talking to someone else. I went to the war room where Arn was at, and I had shut the door. And Arn said, how was he? He was stiff. And I go, Arn, I said, man, he took care of me. I said, treat me like a baby in there. I said, easy as can be. So, well, that's good. And about that time, the door swung open. And I'm kind of to the side. He's looking directly at Arn. And so it kind of like he sees Arn before he sees me, even though I'm closer. And he goes, Arn, that's the best match. Hey, he goes, right here. And he sees me. He goes, that's the best match I've had here in 2 years. And he goes, thank you very much. We shook hands again. I thought, fuck yeah, going from hot to steam, So I always got along with Ming and Barbarian, So another story about Ming, it was not aired. It's probably one of the things I was so disappointed in WCW. I was up in Minneapolis and got to do the show, and some guys I don't know what happened, but 4 or 5 of us, I think several people failed drug tests. I'll say that something like that happened. So I was scheduled to come home, but instead of coming home, I went over to La Crosse, Wisconsin to do a Thursday Night Thunder, and they scheduled with David Flair. And Arn told me, he said, Bobby, the less you give him, the better you are. And he goes, stay on him, give him one thing, and then go for to beat him. And here's the finish. And I said, yes, sir. So my other interaction with Ming was this. So I go to the ring with David Flair. I get on him. I said, grab a headlock, kid. He grabs a headlock. I pick him up, belly to back him, get right up on him, glom him down again. He does a great job. I'm taking care of him. I'm not hurting him. I'm just, doing my job. I go to the corner. I put my hands on the top rope, and I'm stomping down to where I can't see up, right? All of a sudden, the crowd starts that rumble, and I know what's happening. Ming is coming down the ramp, and he puts that tongue and death grip on me because I'm looking down, and I look up, and so I do. He grabs me, and I just, have to sell it, of course. And when I do, I go straight down. David Flair comes up, wraps me up in a figure 4. And, of course, I can't kick out or anything because I had the tongue and death grip on me. But I won most of the match, one of those things, right? Again, Ming's so very professional, told me this, told me that. The next day at the airport, guys come by and said, man, thanks for taking care of the kid. Thank care of the kid. And Ming thanked me. I'm like, bro, thank you. All you did was that to me, And I never forget that evening I was riding back to the Minneapolis area, Rochester, where we was flying out of. And Scott Armstrong said, man, Bobby, what a match. And I said, yeah. I said, man, I almost went over. I said, but he was there for me. It's good. He goes, Bobby, what? This is Scott Armstrong again. I'm throwing his name out there because I had a lot of respect for Scotty. But he goes, you don't get it, do you? And I said, what? He goes, you got killed by the monster of the company. He said, you won. He said, that was better than a victory. He said, it took the monster of the company to get you off the Flair. He said, that's a fucking great victory right there. And I said, whoa, I didn't think of it. He goes, yeah, man. He goes, the people, he goes, I was watching. He goes, the people, when you see this next week, because it'll be taped for Thunder, well, lo and behold, I'm all excited all week. Watch Thunder this week. Watch Thunder. The next week when Thunder came on, Benoit had an altercation. They took the match completely out, and Benoit had an altercation with David Flair out in the hallway, and they completely edited it out. And I'm like, motherfucker, man. So I really love that match. But also, my point being about Ming, you don't, one day in catering, we're sitting there and someone said, hey, be glad this business will work. Because if it wasn't, Ming and Barbarian to come in here and they whip everyone's ass, take everyone's belt they wanted to, and then we'd have no business, we'd have no jobs. Like that. It's the truth, you know. So my stories are all with him are all good because I saw the goodness of his heart. I've heard all the other things and this and that. And, you know, obviously, and I saw when the Japanese boys, especially when Japanese boys came to Orlando to do the tapings, man, they would just, they didn't hurt them, but they'd kill them guys. Ming and Barb would just chop them. And it was all about that respect thing, though, you know. And so they would bring them up right because I'm sure the office told them when they come, these guys are New Japan guys, and we want them to, you know, be and take care of, but also don't be afraid to do what you're trained to do with them. So yeah, I love you guys.
You're getting a real reputation in the company as being a really good hand in the ring, and I take it that's why you were selected to wrestle Eddie Guerrero at WCW a number of times. Did anything from those matches stand out in your memory, sir?
Yes, I'll tell you this. They do. In Erie, Pennsylvania, around this time of the year, before Christmas, I remember we flew into Buffalo, had 3 times up there. Well, on Tuesday night, the first time I knew Eddie prior to being in WCW because, again, it's one of the things, name association, what have you. They were in Charleston, West Virginia, about an hour from the house. WCW was for a house show. Well, I went up to see Dean, just so happened, who was traveling with Eddie, and I met Eddie for the first time, had dinner with him, and got along great with him. So by the time I got there, he had heard of me. I've obviously heard of him, and then Dean always, you know, someone asked, say, yeah, Bobby's a good hand, you know, which was nice. But we in Erie, Pennsylvania. I had my Blaze shirt on, not the Forever Blaze one. This is from my last match type thing. Woo, forever. Rest in peace, Terry Funk.
Terry Funk,
anyway, yes, absolutely. But so we're in Erie, and I had wrestled up in some independents up in Pennsylvania years ago. There was a promoter up there. He had a deal every April. He would do something for the Special Olympics, and it'd be like 3 or 4 or 5 towns lined up in a row, and all of them for Special Olympics. So one of those shows where the tickets were prepaid, no matter if people showed up or not. They'd sell like 1,000 tickets. Well, usually 500 or 600 people showed up. It was always a good event, and they took care of me on the money, hotel, buffet, and all that. It's just really nice for the Special Olympics. You get to do something, you know. So I've obviously had fans up there, and I didn't realize, you know, how many people you do over the years, you know. So I come out, and I'm actually getting a decent response, legitimately, you know, from the crowd, like, oh, this guy's wrestled up here before. So I'm on there, and Eddie just said in the back, really, you know, he said, you know my finish? Yeah. 5-star? Yeah. Okay. That was all it said. He said, listen to me. I got you. Went in the ring, and Eddie is so light, you don't even know he's there. You have to grab yourself to say, did he just touch me? I mean, he is so professional and so light. He's working around you, and he's just speaking like, do this, cut me off, stay here, do that. It was so easy, but it's so fun to actually work. And he's given me most of the match. And finally put myself in position. He said, this is it, kid. You know, watch the splash. And that was it. And I thank you. And I remember giving him a snap suplex during the match. And when I picked him up, I actually did a snap suplex. I could have picked him up and held him, but I didn't, because that's what Chris and Dean and all them and Eddie and they're all doing them. So when I got in the back, I thanked him. I said, man, you gave me so much. I appreciate it so much. And he said, well, my family's in this business. I love this business. And like my dad always said, if I'd go out there and beat you to death, Bobby, he said, I beat no one. He goes, I got a pay-per-view coming up. I want a worthy opponent. So when I beat you, it means something. And I go, I understand it. That's my thinking too. And he goes, I'm gonna tell you one thing. And I go, yes, sir. And he goes, if we work again, he goes, pick me up high for that suplex. You're a big guy. He said, you're over 6 foot, And I said, well, I did out of respect. He goes, no. He goes, we're smaller. And he's muscular, of course. He goes, we do that because we're short. He goes, you pick me up and hold me. He said, I'll go up with you. That's all. I said, great. I said, okay, And so it was like the second taping, or I get home. I don't know if it's that Saturday or the following Saturday, what it was. I'm sitting there watching TV. Again, it's right around Christmas time. And I'm sitting there looking. I fucking thought I was going to win. I mean, he gave me so much. I'm watching the tape. It's me. And I'm going like, well, I'm going to win this. I'm going to win this. And I remember being around town. Again, when I say around Christmas, give or take a week or two before or after, whatever, the holidays, And people would see me and it's, hey, man, I saw you get Eddie Guerrero. I thought you were going to win. I said, and they still tell me today. And I said, I did too. I said, I really did. If you watched the other time we wrestled was in Sarasota, Florida. And I didn't find this out till later on, but he was in a little bit of a different mood. And when he came to me, he said, Bobby, just get on me tonight and beat me to death. Beat me up. He goes, I'll cut you off when I want it. Stay on me. I like anything else. He goes, well, you already know the finish. I go, okay. And honestly, he come through the ropes. I attacked him. I just glommed him and stayed on him. And he'd cut me off and he'd cut me off. I'd get on him again. I did something. I don't know what I did. Fucked up a move or whatever. Here comes 5-star splash. Boom. 1, 2, frog splash, whatever. 1, 2, 3. And then I heard it was either next day or 2 days later, maybe. Dean, word was around. I won't say Dean said this. Word was around, I guess Chris and Dean and Eddie had spoken with Eric earlier that day. I wasn't there. I didn't see it, but something about a cup of coffee was thrown and people were arguing and fighting this and that. So I know Eddie was discussing contracts, I guess. So when that Tuesday came, apparently they had just met and Eddie come out with not in the greatest mood because I don't know what happened because I was not there, but I know that that night he was going to wrestle a match and he did, but he just like, you take over. He was in a mood to just like take it out on me, pay me for my sins or something. I don't know what it was, but he was just like, and so he was so easy, and I just did his finish. Again, that was more of a personal issue he had going on with someone else. But see, professionally with me, it was like he trusted me enough that I would not take advantage of him, would not take liberties with his body, and I would be there for the finish no matter how much he gave me. So once again, it's one of the things like, I thought you was going to be an Eddie Guerrero. And yeah, me too, so, and I've got a really good picture. It was in a national magazine. Eddie's got me in I think it's an abdominal stretch. It's a really good colored picture of one of them independent magazines back in the day. Pro Wrestling Illustrated or what, honestly, I don't know what it's from. If I could find it, I would. I've got someone has duplicated a picture and they sell it now at these conventions. And I'm grateful what they give me a handful and say, hey, will you autograph these or sell these? I'm like, sure. But I remember going to a Kroger store, probably like y'all still have Sobe up there or something. The big Albertsons.
Yeah, we had Sobeys. Yep.
Yeah, Sobe. So it's like that here, and they're out Cincinnati area. And I was down there one morning, just getting coffee and donuts or picking up something, and they used to have a real large selection of magazines, and I was thumbing through a wrestling magazine, like, holy shit, there I was right there in color. I went and bought 3 of them. That's what they had. I bought them all 3. I couldn't tell you where they're at now. I've got an idea where they're at, but yeah. That's so that was really cool to be that associated. But Eddie was very professional, and when I touch someone, I'll say trying to teach them to work or something, and I'm doing my hands here. Eddie would be like, let me put my hand. Eddie would be like this, light that you would have to try to feel. Dean is like this. Dean's there, but he's not going to hurt you. So his grip, and this is Chris. Chris is right here. He's stiff, he's tight, but he's not going to hurt you. He's going to make you earn it. So I always say, you want to work snug, we can work snug. You want to learn to work like Dean and be a craftsman. It's right here in the middle, not too stiff, but he's there. Or you get really smooth. Here's Eddie. He's so smooth, and I'm just touching my finger. He's just so smooth, man. And like I said, he always thought about what's best. Just I'm gonna put this kid, make him look good. So when I do win, I'm going into this pay-per-view strong, but I beat someone. I didn't job someone out and then now I'm King Hill. I'm going to fight on pay-per-view this week. No, he worked it, and them guys were all good to me. And a lot of it had to do with being a professional, honestly, being able to work and back it up. If I told you I was going to do something or be there for a spot, I was going to be there. And also, if I messed up, I'll take the blame for it. If I've done something with Dean before and I kept thinking about this one spot he wanted to do, and I'm like, I couldn't get it in my head. It was very simple, but I couldn't get it. I said, he said, no, you can do it. You can do it. Well, sure enough, I went for the tackle. I did this, did that. And I grabbed the rope and I turned around and he's just now kipping up. And I said, I just missed a spot. So I charged at him and I didn't know what he was going to do, but I charged at him. He dropped toe hold me. And I was like, fuck, I knew I missed it. So I just sold right to the ropes, grabbed the ropes like, you ain't going to snag me, you little bastard. I know I fucked up, but you ain't stretching me today. But again, working wise, I knew he wasn't going to. I trusted him, But I did this, and when I came up off that rope, I knew what was next, Just and we was actually traveling together that day, and I think him telling me about it in the car is just making me nervous. He's like, I do a spot on it. And again, it's just the drop down, kip up, whatever. But I couldn't conceive it, and in my head, one of those things, you're going to fuck something up. I did. And he wasn't the least bit mad. He took me down. I sold to the ropes. He goes, let's keep going. We just kept going. And on the car ride home, he said, Bobby, I'll show you that. Next time we're in the ring, I'll show it to you. You're overthinking it probably, something like that. And we went out that night and probably had, a beer or chicken sandwich or something. Forgotten about it. What did he big deal, but it's one of those things where like, you don't want to, if I fucked it up, so I tell a guy, hey, I don't want to do this. I will do that. Most of the time I will do it because I want to make you look good. If it's something you do good, I want to be there for you and make you look good. And I knew that with Pez Watley, Arn, Kevin, Terry, those guys knew me. Paul Warndorf. So if they specifically told someone, you listen to what Bobby says, and you're going to have a good match out here tonight. And I knew whether I was going over or whether I was putting them over, I knew my job that night. And that my agreement when I signed the contract, was, they're like back to the thing Terry told me, there are people that's going to, stay down for you for 3 seconds. So you please lay down for 3 seconds or take their finish, but that's just being a good hand. As I went to have a meeting with Warndorf one time at the power plant, and he gave me a compliment. I knew him again from Smoky Mountain. I knew him from Tampa and from Smoky Mountain, and I done a couple independents down in Georgia. When I still was Smoky Mountain, we could do shots, down there, and or other place, but didn't. If we weren't priorly booked for Jimmy, and so I had a lot of respect for Paul. And he sit there, he goes, Bobby goes, and I found out what had happened, but while the meeting took place, but Bobby said, you're just a good partner. He said, you're not all blown up and puffed up like some people. And he goes, you're not all tatted up like other people. He goes, you just got your look. And he goes, I'd just be happy being in your position if I was you. He goes, it's a good position to be in. We all think a lot of you, and you're just a good carpenter like that. And I left the meeting like to the way to TV. I was like, all right, man, if this is as good as it gets, I'm good with it because I know he's not bullshitting me. He's telling me the truth, and it's a good position to be in. And what had happened was, and I know the reference to you're not blown up and you're muscled up or you're not tattooed up. I had a match with Baron Puro on WCW. Yeah. That was a very good match, one of my favorite matches. And I just saw him at WrestleCade. We just spoke to each other very briefly twice there because about a year ago, he was in my hometown. I went down, hung out with him, talked to him, got caught up on a bunch of stuff. And, he seemed like he's in a really good place right now. and that was really cool. So the Wrestle Cage thing was like, bro, we're good, you know, and that was the way it was. But on this show, so what had happened, the match was really good. He put it over. Apparently he went and took, he wanted to take it to a pay-per-view match. And, you know, of course, he's all tatted up. And then I'm trying to think, I can't remember who he done it with. Wasn't Flash. It was someone big from, it was someone that worked for New Japan. Honestly, I'm drawing a blank on which guy it was, but a bigger muscle guy, you know. And they, Vampiro ended up doing a pay-per-view of him. Anyway, I know that he had went to and said, hey, I'd like to wrestle Bobby on this pay-per-view. And word was, you know, I didn't have enough experience or exposure on a pay-per-view, you know, level. And that's fine. I had got pulled into Knoxville to wrestle Booker T for 8 minutes. And by the time I got there, it was get 5 minutes in. Then it went from, I didn't hear us till later. Well, Bobby don't have enough Nitro experience. Take him out of that match, put someone else on a Booker, which was a power plant guy, which was a mistake because Booker, I'm not going to say who the guy was. He wasn't ready to be on Booker's level. And that's fine, but he's a good guy. But anyway, I had to wrestle Clark, Big Brian.
Brian Clark, yeah.
Yeah, he just got beat, I think, by Nash the night before. Because when Terry came to me, I'll tell you this: I was sitting there. Now this is kind of I was supposed to wrestle, like I said, Booker T, and then that went to 5 minutes, and then it went to change the opponent, and so I'm sitting there, and this is Brad Armstrong, Scott Armstrong, Steve Armstrong, and Nick Patrick are around me. I'm sitting there tying my boots, and Terry Taylor comes to me and says, Bobby, he goes, that match has been cut down. So it went to 5 minutes with Brian Clark. What was his gimmick? I'm sorry.
Chronic?
Yeah.
Or Wrath or Mortis.
Wrath. Thank you, Wrath. Yeah, no disrespect to Brian. I knew him again from Smoky Mountain as Night Stalker, you know. Yeah. So again, one of these people I knew. And Terry said, Bobby, that match is now 3 minutes. And he goes, and he turned around and goes, do what you can. He goes, because he just, in his word, were like he just done a job for the boss the night before on pay-per-view. This is a Monday Nitro. My first one, I was supposed to make a debut against Booker T. I'm stoked in Knoxville, you know. So Terry takes about 5 or 10 steps away, comes back and walks to me. And in front of them guys, I just now named my peers, who I looked up to, all those guys. He turned around, he said, Bobby Blaze, he said, you're the most underused talent in WCW. You're the most underused talent we have here. Turned around and walked away. And them guys looked at me, and I'm thinking, wait a minute. Every one of these fucking guys right here, Brad Armstrong, you know, Scott and Steve, you know, I'm sitting going, these guys can work as good, if not better than me. You know what I'm saying? I kind of felt bad that he didn't compliment them, that he complimented me. He got out of earsight, man, and all them guys, they oh, Bobby, man, damn. And they started putting me over because they're like brothers like that. They didn't take it the wrong way. They took it because one of their friends, one of their brothers got such a huge compliment. And so anyway, that match, Raph come over and he goes, hey, we got about 3 minutes. You care if I do this and do that? And I'm like, well, whatever. Yeah, Brian, whatever you want to do is not going to be that big of a deal. I mean, because I'll be there. I'll do whatever you want to do. We get up to the curtain, and in the ring, there's Bischoff at like top of the hour talking with whoever's out there. And Paul Orndorff is right there with me at the gorilla position. And Brian's right behind me. And he goes, well, Bischoff just went over. He said, you've got about 3 seconds. And I'm like, what? And he goes, yeah. He goes, you just have to get what you can. Like I said, Brian's right behind me. I turned to Paul and I said, Paul, what do you want me to do in 3 seconds? He goes, Bobby, I'd kick him. Brian no sell it, pin him. He goes, well, what's your finish? And Brian was doing that pump handle right. And this is because they went over on a segment out there on live TV at the top of the hour. And I turned back to Brian. I said, well, how about this? I said, I kick you. As soon as I kick you, you no sell it. I'll sell your kick. I'll bend over. You just pump handle me. 1, 2, 3. And that's about much time we had. And that's what we did. And that's my Nitro debut from 8 minutes with Booker T all the way down to that. And I'm thinking, I was embarrassed. I was like, I told Rocky King, I'm supposed to get 3 seconds, 3 minutes in. And I got this because this Friday I got the gorilla. And he said, Bobby, did your check come this week? I said, yes, sir. And he goes, then shut up and do your job, brother. And I love Rocky King's death. And he told me that, and I go, you're right. If I get the gorilla, that 3 minutes went to 3 seconds, But anyway, I kept thinking, man, I never forget. I kept thinking people's going to see this and think, man, just the whole squash match, you just got beat on Nitro. It's terrible, and this and that. So I'm out to eat at Applebee's afterwards, and it's me and Scott and Steve, and we're sitting there. And I said, man, I hated that. I hated that because I wanted to do more, my Nitro. And they go, Bobby, you know what? You know how many people were watching that? And I'm thinking they're burying me, right? And I go, yeah, a buckload of them. He goes, no, it was 9 o'clock. He said, as soon as you went on, that's what every TV in America went click. They went to Raw. He said, I guarantee it, not that many people saw you. He said, that segment went over. And you know what? To this day, I come home. I was at a restaurant with my ex at the time. This kid, about 15, just looked like a typical smart up teenager. He comes walking to me when I'm paying, and I'm going, oh, well, here, I'm going to hear it. Because in my mind, this is all in my mind. This is the first person I've seen out in public since I've been home. They're going to say, oh, you went on TV and got your ass whipped and this and that. That was in my mind. This kid walked up. I'm sitting there paying. He goes, excuse me, you Bobby Blaze? I said, yeah. He goes, man, you're from my hometown, and you was on Nitro. He goes, man, you did great. And I'm like, no, I got beat. He goes, no, man, you don't get it. You were on Monday Nitro. You're from my hometown, and they announced you. And I'm like, and that's only. And I went to the YMCA to work out. I went to Fitness World. I'd done my little whatever I was supposed to do. No one ever mentioned that. I was like, Armstrong was right. Everyone must have been clicking at that time, But Wrath, he did what he did. He had to. He had a gimmick to get over. And it's just because a segment went over. But also the word was, I didn't have enough experience on Nitro to wrestle Booker T, but that's all right too. It's just hell, it all passed now. Supposedly out WCW $1 still. I don't know.
Absolutely, and that exposure in and of itself is valuable, and we're amongst other accolades in your career, we're talking about this segment. Before we do a transition to talk about your current your authorship and your other projects, I had to ask you this because I saw that you worked this guy a couple of times on television, and it's always been kind of one of the, along with the Renegade, a head scratcher for me in terms of WCW. Why do you have any clue why they were pushing Glacier so hard? And then it seemed like the bottom fell out, and your memory's working him.
Well, I liked working with Ray. He was easy to work with. Ray was one of those guys. I think he's a wrestler. He had wrestled in Georgia, from that area. I think northern Georgia. He'd been on a show I was on way back when, and he was of all the people that was at the power plant. He was very respectful because he had actually been working a little bit, He was respectful of people. He knew me from Smoky Mountain TV, and he was a fan. Plus, he had been to Japan. So I had a lot of respect for him because when he came to me, it's like, what do you want to do, Bobby? I mean, I already know he's going over, but it was like the 2 times I wrestled, both times, he's like, what do you want to do? And I'll do it. And then, to finish or whatever. I think it's because he was there. He had a good look. He had the experience. He is very well spoken. Very respectful of the business. I think he's one of them guys that, and I don't know this, don't have any inside track other than what I'm going to tell you, is that when they started doing the power plant and things, I think he's one of them guys that showed up every time, was respectful every time. And I think he very much had worked enough independence, and I know he had at least one tour of Japan at that point, that someone liked him, and when I say someone, it is probably the likes of a Kevin Sullivan, Arn Anderson and Paul Orndorff, and I think also where he done karate, I'm sure Bischoff had a certain amount of respect for him. That so yeah, I think it's a combination of things, and I think it's very well deserved. I don't know that it was a hell of a gimmick. I guess it's that Mortal Kombat type thing, but which was popular. I don't know personally or professionally, you know, what kind of transcended to go. I guess he went back to being a coach, you know, done that for a little bit, but I hear he's doing very well in life. I'm saying as far as a gimmick, didn't he do like a coach gimmick for a little bit? And they try to do that because that's what he was wanting to. I think he coached prior to getting into wrestling and then caught that big break. I have a lot of respect for him. Very nice gentleman. And I have a student right now that I help some that was down at the Nightmare Factory. And Glacier was down there doing some help. I don't know how much he's there, how little he's there, but there's a young man I work with that had been down there for like 6 months, and he had worked with him some, and they still stay in touch. And I always say, tell him how or whatever. And so, always been a very respectful person to me, and professionally, like I said, he's one of the guys that say, what do you want to do? You know, because he knows I'm there to get him over. What are you going to do to get me over, Bobby? You know, and I just lay out something simple because I knew he had to work. He could do whatever, and it was easy, you know. So hope that answers your question.
One of those strange footnotes of something that you think is going to be huge, and then they pump the brakes or whatnot. So
yeah, I don't know why they did that. That's, you know.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense considering you seem to have all the tools. But you've had one hell of a career, and we've done 3 parts on it, and we're just raising the awareness of the public in there. But where can the fans? I want them to go and find your books and read them, because if you've enjoyed the immense storytelling talents of Bobby Blaze, you got to pick up the book. So let's plug those now if you
can. My first book is called Pin Me, Pay Me, Have Boots Will Travel. This book is it's about breaking into wrestling. It's about just every territory I worked in. I tell something about it. Tell little stories about any of the guys I've met on the road. Talk about my entire Smoky Mountain run. That's in here. It has a contract when I signed with WCW. Have a few stories that I shared, here with that. This book, along with my other one, you can get it on Amazon. Just go to Amazon. This book is called I Kicked Out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler. This book here is kind of after wrestling, but it's all these little memories of everything from strippers to car rides to top 10 favorite road songs when you're traveling down a road to the top 10 most dangerous moves in professional wrestling. Has my top so many matches that I preferred, I liked. Again, it has a little eulogy of people that's passed through. Both of them have that for those time references. Again, get both these books on Amazon. If you go to Amazon, just type in Bobby Blaze Smedley. It'll take you to my authors page. Or just type in Pin Me, Pay Me. That'll come up first. Same thing if I kick that on 2. You can get both those books right there on Amazon. Both of them are available. Let's see. That's the second one. Let me hold this one up here. Get it in here. That's the first one right there. So both of those are available on ebook, on Kindle. The Kindle app is free on either laptop or phone or what have you, phone. You get the Kindle app and you just download it. I think they're only like $3.99 and $4.99 on Kindle. Now on Amazon, they're only $15. And they can be out there by Christmas. I guarantee you, if you order it now, you can get them by Christmas for yourself or the wrestling person in your family or friend. They ought to get these books. I'm telling you, I'm working on my 3rd book, and I had to do some research, and I go back in this one just this weekend, and I'm sitting there going, I wrote this, because there's so much, especially this kind of thing about if you're aspiring wrestling, about leaders in the locker room, just little things about, being, I consulted with someone the other day, a professional female wrestler I really admire a lot. And can you critique this match? And I'm like, absolutely. And I did. And I said, but here's what I think you need to do. Because I think this person's going to be a big star, bigger star than what they are. Be patient and be professional, because it's going to happen. That's my last advice. And it's in this book just telling you, hey, this is what you do. Be a professional, be patient, and it'll pay off, and that's the whole thing about that. You can find me on Instagram at Bobby Blaze 744, or on Twitter or X or whatever ABC, what do you want to call it nowadays. I'm at Bobby Blaze 744. I am not on Facebook. There might be accounts out there. That's fine. But also, I mentioned that Jeremy and my old podcast partner and William Harding, they're putting together a YouTube channel. And our old one used to be the Bell to Bell Bobby Blaze podcast. It had like 11,000 subscribers. Well, of course, one of the gentlemen passed away that was in control of that, and a lot of other stuff happened. Long story short, we have a new one. It's called the Official Bell to Bell with Bobby Blaze podcast, and they've transferred everything over. So we're trying to get all of our subscribers back over to that now. From my understanding, eventually you might be able to get my books through there. I don't know that, but because I just got a message about it, they're trying to get it to where whatever you got to get on YouTube. Anyway, I am on Twitter and Instagram at Bobby Blaze 744. If you DM me or direct message, whatever, PM me, whatever it is, if you want the books, I won't guarantee you'll get it by Christmas, because depending on how soon you get a hold of me, I personalize them, autograph them, and they're $25 that away. I'm not charging you for the autograph. That's just because the book's costing at least $15 plus the shipping and handling. At this point, it's only U.S. only. I have mailed stuff to Canada a couple of times as a personal favor to someone, but the postage rate with a little bit. So I don't want to stick it to someone over the postage rate, but I will make it available if someone, makes it right, because I want everyone to have a chance. But again, just download the damn thing and read it and share it. And I'll tell you this, if you have read it, I would appreciate anyone out there that's read it to review it on Amazon. There's over, I think there's 170 or 179 reviews on this that rates out at about a 4.6, I believe.
Yeah.
If you would take this and leave me a fair and honest review, I'd appreciate that. I'm not asking for 5s or whatever. I'm just asking, if you give me a 5, that's great. 5 stars, yeah. But I'm just saying, if you be fair and honest, I appreciate it. Again, just look up Bobby Blaze Smedley on Amazon. It'll go in there. Type in "Pin Me, Pay Me" on your Google search machine up there, and it should be one of the first things that pops up, and it'll take you right to it. And I'm working on my 3rd book. I keep telling everyone, but I've been procrastinating on this thing. But it's here. And there's a bunch of notebooks right over there, and I have some stuff typed up. So that book's called, the working title is, "Hey Ref, that was a fast count, and then one thing led to another." So that's the working title. So anyway, and Jack, I can't thank you enough for your time, for your podcast, productions, man. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the friendship that we have developed and the time you've given to me to be on this tremendous podcast. So.
Well, right back at you, sir. I have thoroughly enjoyed. This is something that we talked about doing for literally years.
Yeah.
And we do run a number of panel discussions on Cheap Heat Productions, and we'd love to have you back. But I want to say to the fans that are watching, seriously, grab Bobby's books. Whatever way you do, grab them. You won't be disappointed. The man, as you've seen and heard, is a fountain of wisdom and knowledge of the business back when it was still the business. And his information and his wisdom still pertains to those that want to be in wrestling today. But Bobby, once again, thanks so much for participating in this series, and we'll keep in touch.
Been my pleasure. Thank you very much. Happy holidays, or whatever you celebrate around the world. I appreciate it, and I'm just happy to be here. So thank you.
Absolutely. Well, fans, that's it for this trifecta edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Wrestling Podcast with the great Bobby Blaze. Check out the rest of these episodes and check out his books, and stay tuned, because this week we're having our big festive Christmas special on the channel on Thursday with Mario Mancini. We're calling it Miracle on 69th Street. It's going to be a different one. And Mario brings that wit and humor to the channel that will not disappoint in terms of entertainment value. So until then, I'm Jack Kilby. Take care, everybody.